For a little girl growing up Catholic today, will she ever participate as a clergy member in the church?
No.
He shut that down. Pope Francis, in that epic clip, I'm not going to let it go, especially because now I'm seeing that some people really don't like that clip. Let me show you something. I posted that clip on TikTok. It was creeping on 1 million views on TikTok. And of course, like other videos that I've posted, they take it down. They shut it down. And this time they're saying it's hate speech. I didn't know what attack and slurs on the basis of protected attributes meant. And so I clicked on it and it told me hate speech. Oh, okay. So it's hate speech for Pope Francis to say that in the Catholic Church, women can't be ordained. Hate speech? Wow. Well, I am going to continue to promote that. And I'm going to promote it on TikTok too, over and over again. And if they ban me, I'll just create another account and do it again. And if they ban that, I'll just create another account and do it again. So yeah, gonna make sure that one gets out there. Now, let's talk about the topic of the day. Raymond Arroyo has seemingly embraced fiducia supplicans. Great news, right? Yeah, he's embraced fiducia supplicans. I'm gonna show you a clip from yesterday where Raymond and Robert Royal from The Catholic Thing discuss briefly the recent interview from Pope Francis on 60 Minutes. And some pretty interesting stuff that we're going to see here. And I'm going to interact with it. Let's take a look. I'm going to play the whole clip before I comment on anything. It's only about 3 minutes or so. But I'll play the full thing before I say anything. Let's watch it all.
But to bless each person, yes. The blessing I allowed was not to bless the union.
To allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament. I cannot. The Lord made it that way. But to bless each person, yes. The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the church. But to bless each person, why not? The blessing is for all. Some people were scandalized by this, but why? Everyone. Everyone.
Bob, the Pope corrected O'Donnell here on the notion and the nature of the blessing. But what is the difference? By all appearances, nobody's scandalized by everyone getting a blessing. We had that all along. This document, we should say this, and Nora O'Donnell should have posed this to the Pope, and she didn't. Then why do you need a document saying couples can come forward, not individuals, couples to be blessed? I'll let you talk.
Yeah, well, you're assuming that this would be a really probing interview,
or an interview at all.
When in fact, this is a series of basically softball questions. Yeah. Let's say it, and you know, God bless Nora O'Donnell. There's a certain deference toward the papacy, which it's good to see someone in the secular world at least doing that. But look, you know, when this sort of thing begins to happen, what we're obviously seeing is that there's an attempt for the Holy Father to kind of split the difference.
I'm pausing here not to comment, but just to make sure that I don't get like a copyright strike for playing a really long clip. So blah, 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 blah. Chopping it up a bit here. Commentary. All right, let's proceed.
Reference in a way that is not going to alienate the secular world, But I actually went back and I looked at fiducia supplicans, and I wish Father Murray was here because he's got chapter and verse. There are 9 different places where it talks about couples.
Yeah, it doesn't say
So
individual.
it doesn't just say individuals. So you're exactly right. You can always bless individuals, 2, 3, 5, however many come in.
Yeah.
But there's clearly the attempt to kind of suggest something here, and
Yeah.
maybe it'll continue down the line and end up somewhere else.
Everyone gets a blessing. It's called the end of Mass, but I'll leave it there. Pope Francis was also asked about sexual abuse cases in the church.
All right. So that's the clip. This is going to be fun. Okay. So I've probably heard the question, why was fiducia supplicans needed? If this is true, I've probably heard that question a million times. And I've probably answered it a million times. But I understand there are people who are asking it for the first time, and they're asking it sincerely. And so I will offer a sincere answer. Why was fiducia supplicans needed if we could already do this before? Well, I'm going to give you at least 4 reasons, but the most striking one relates to Raymond Arroyo personally. Raymond Arroyo, I thought it was interesting that he was the one who asked that question. You know why I found that interesting? Because it was Raymond Arroyo and Cardinal Burke on the world over who put it into doubt and were suggesting that Pope Francis had abandoned his 2021 decision to forbid blessing on same-sex unions. And they were suggesting he's getting ready to change that. Raymond Arroyo and Cardinal Burke. I will play a clip to you where I reviewed them doing this on October 6th, which is before fiducia supplicans, well before fiducia supplicans, about a month and a half before fiducia supplicans. Raymond Arroyo, Cardinal Burke, and then everybody, all the usual suspects jumped on the bandwagon, and we're putting it into doubt. And we're saying Pope Francis in his 2021 decision, he's getting ready to overturn it. So they put it into doubt. So fiducia supplicans comes out and in paragraph 5 and 11 reaffirms the 2021 position. Why was that needed? Among other reasons, because guys like Raymond put that into doubt unnecessarily because of poor research. And so I'm going to play that to you. But this is why I found it interesting that he's the one to ask that question. Raymond, because you were part of the problem that led a lot of people to believe that Pope Francis was getting ready to change his position. Why did he release fiducia? Partly because of you, Raymond. And so let me show that to you so that you know I come with receipts. My commentary on what they said on the world over. I'm going to play the whole clip from a video called Cardinal Burke's Comments on Pope Francis on the World Over, October 6, 2023. You remember Burke, among others, engaged in this wild dubia fiasco. It put a spin on what Pope Francis was saying to them in a letter in response to them. And by the way, we only found out what Pope Francis actually said after Fernandez released it, because Cardinal Burke and others weren't going to tell us fully what Pope Francis said, but they did give us their spin on it. And then when we saw what they said he said versus what Pope Francis actually said, we saw, oh wow, these guys twisted what Pope Francis said. Aside from that whole fiasco, that was on October 2nd, if I recall correctly. 4 days later, he's on the world over, preparing people to believe Pope Francis is getting ready to change his position on same-sex unions and blessing same-sex unions. So by the way, when fiducia dropped, That's how everybody read the document. That is the suspicion that they already had, and that's the disposition they already had because of guys like Burke and Raymond Arroyo. So they were ripe for the picking. They were ready to interpret fiducia supplicans in a way that was discontinuous with what Pope Francis had said before. They were already laying the groundwork well before that, and I was calling it out at the time. Watch this. Around the 17-minute mark, watch what Raymond and Cardinal Burke say.
Cardinal Burke, in 2021, the Dicastery of the Doctrine of the Faith issued a response to a question, a dubium, about whether the church has the authority to bless unions of persons of the same sex. The response given was a simple and customary one-word answer, no. Now, according to this October 2nd answer to your formal question, Pope Francis reportedly says, we'll put it on the screen.
Notice they're trying to contrast the two. In 2021, it was this. Now it's something else. Watch.
We cannot be judges who only deny, push back, and exclude. Pastoral prudence must adequately discern whether there are forms of blessing requested by one or more persons that do not transmit a mistaken conception of marriage.
Now look at that. They stopped the quote right there. Look where they stopped it. Why is this important? As I've demonstrated in a previous show, because it's the very next sentence that shows us he is talking about blessing persons who are struggling with same-sex attraction and blessing them in the sense of an invocation for them to have help from God to live a healthier and more holy life. Notice that. I'm saying that on October 6th before Fiducia came out. I'm telling you what Fiducia is going to say before it came out. They're telling you what they think it's going to say, which turned out to be the exact opposite of the truth. They left that part out, didn't they? The very next sentence. Let's look at it in case you haven't seen that show. The very next sentence. So, right here. Let's see. Okay. Right there. They just quoted the very first part right here. Not transmit a mistaken conception of marriage is where they end. That's a different translation, but it's the same thing. This is the one that I got from Cardinal Burke's website. They end it right here. Paragraph E for question 2, for those who want to know. Question 2, paragraph E. They ended the quote right there. What does Pope Francis say in the very next sentence? The very part that everyone has been missing and I've been trying to call everyone's attention to. There you go. He says, because when a blessing is requested, it is a help from God, a plea to be able to live a better life, or to live better, a trust in a Father who can help us live better. So what kind of blessings is he referring to? He's referring to blessings of individuals, one or more, to live a healthier life, to live a holier life, a request for help from God, a plea to live better. Not, I am going to say that God is now blessing your disordered, sinful union. Pope Francis never said that. He never says that somehow he is open to, as long as it's not confused with a marriage, blessing the union itself. Look what's on their screen. World over, Raymond Arroyo blessing same-sex unions, question mark. Raymond, you're the reason why fiducia was needed in part. You, Burke, and others. This is why. You guys put it into doubt, and you did not do so justifiably, because I was showing at the time you are completely ignoring context and misreading Pope Francis, and you're creating confusion that wasn't there. You're creating that, not Pope Francis. You're putting it into doubt, not Pope Francis. You guys prepared the way for the fiducia supplicans chaos. For the chaos that erupted after that document came out, you guys prepared the way. So you want to ask why? Here's why. The whole world is going to see why. This is why. As affirmed by God. No, he is talking about persons, not the union, and not to bless the union and saying your sinful union is okay now in the eyes of God, but rather to bless the individual as a request for help from God to live a better life. They missed that part, the very next sentence. Was that deliberate? I'll assume no. I'll assume this was an oversight. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But that's one heck of an oversight, isn't it? Because doesn't that change the whole picture of what Pope Francis is talking about? Of course it does. And so everybody who has been putting in the news that Pope Francis gave the green light to blessing same-sex unions, that he said yes or that he's open to it, whether they intend it or not, they're bearing false witness. You can bear false witness without intending to bear false witness. You can present a lie without intending to lie. How is that? Well, because you've been deceived. And so presenting that false information is still bearing false witness regardless of the intention. And so the vast majority of people out there are pushing this narrative that Pope Francis has opened the door to blessing same-sex unions. But actually, he's talking about blessing individuals so that they can live a holier life. That being said, I still criticize what Pope Francis is doing here. Why? Because as I've noted before, in and of itself, sure, there's nothing wrong with blessing an individual to live a holier life. That's fine. But if this is going to be public, here's where that could be dangerous. Even though you say all the right things, even though you make all the right distinctions, even though you say you're blessing the person, not the union, what are people going to take away at the end of the day? You know, people are going to still abuse this and take away the wrong thing from it at the end of the day. This is why I've been saying from day one, these blessings should be done privately. No cameras, none of that. You know, people are going to do that. So is it wise to do this? I don't think so, but that's ultimately up to the pastors and especially the chief shepherd to decide. I don't think it's wise, just in my, you know, my opinion, for whatever it's worth. But ultimately it's their call, right? It's the Pope's call. So even though technically it checks out what Pope Francis is saying, technically it's morally illicit, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably unwise because we know it's going to be open to frequent abuse and frequent misunderstanding. So if that's the case, let's not do that. Let's then keep blessing individuals in a private setting. Let's not do that publicly. It's the public element that will end up being confusing to some people. So again, they've misrepresented Pope Francis. They did so clearly right here in not continuing the quote and showing the rest of the context. Now let's hear how Cardinal Burke responds.
Your Eminence, though he says the bishops' conferences should not establish this as a rule, he is saying it should be left up to pastors. This seems to contradict the prior ruling of the Vatican Doctrinal Office. Is it now permissible for the church to bless same-sex unions?
You heard that? This seems to contradict the 2021 decision. He's seeming to allow now for blessing same-sex unions. Raymond was saying that October 6th, before Fiducia Supplicans, he and others were putting it into doubt. So how dare he ask, why was the document needed? Because you guys created a massive confusion and put Pope Francis's position into doubt, so he had to reassert his position. Are you kidding me? You don't know what you yourself have said, Raymond? Now let's watch what Cardinal Burke says. Does he correct the confusion or does he add to it? Watch. There you go. So he's now saying, he's asking the question to Cardinal Burke that, you know, this contradicts what Pope Francis said in 2021, where he said God cannot bless sin, therefore the church, it can't bless sin. Well, what we just read doesn't contradict that, does it? No, it doesn't. Because Pope Francis is not talking about blessing the sin. He's talking about blessing the sinner. And he's not saying, hey, the sin is okay and God approves of it. He's saying, no, what we're saying here is this individual that we're blessing, that is an invocation for help from God to live a holier life. So you see, that doesn't contradict 2021 by any stretch of the imagination if you just read it in context. But if you equivocate on the term blessing and you shift it from the person to the union, which he doesn't do, then you're going to come away thinking that that contradicts 2021. But that's just because you're not paying attention. You're not reading the rest of the context, the very next sentence. Well, let's see if Cardinal Burke picks up on this distinction that Pope Francis gave to him, or if he goes with the straw man that Arroyo just presented to him.
Well, you cannot, the point, and we raise it in the dubium with regard to I think it's number 3, with regard to the same-sex unions. You cannot bless sinful acts. You cannot bless a relationship which in itself is involved with intrinsically evil acts.
So number 1, he didn't get the question right. It was question number 2, not question number 3. And then number 2, Pope Francis never says that you can bless the evil act. You see, Burke was from day 1 of that dubia fiasco putting Francis's position into doubt unjustly, because Francis's response to him did not overturn 2021 at all. They're harmonious. But if you operate with this suspicion of discontinuity and a hermeneutic of discontinuity, you can insert rupture anywhere you want. But that's not a Catholic hermeneutic. So, yeah, this is why. Among other reasons, and I'm going to go through every one of them. I know I've gone through them before, but this is one of the reasons why it was necessary for Pope Francis to reassert the 2021 decision in Fiducia Supplicans, which again he does in paragraph 5, such as the meaning of the responsum of the congregation of the doctrine of the faith. That's the 2021 decision, which states that the church does not have the power to impart blessing on unions of persons of the same sex. It's reaffirming that 2021 decision in paragraph 5 and also in paragraph 11. And the rest of the document in substance is confirming it as well. And so it's there explicitly, and also throughout the rest of the document, the whole spirit of the 2021 document is there. This is why I've said this was an artificial controversy created by dissenters. And the confusion mostly came from the critics, not from Pope Francis and Fiducia. I've offered a few criticisms of Fiducia and said I would have avoided the word couple, not because it's heretical, not because it doesn't make sense in the context, but because people don't read the context. So let's help minimize their ability to twist words, which they're still doing to this day, as you're seeing in this interview. They're still getting hung up on the word couple, which we'll explore here in a moment. But let me finish the question, or giving the answer to the question. Raymond asks, why? Well, partly because of you, Raymond. Partly because of the people you bring on your show, like Cardinal Burke. Partly because of you guys, as I've demonstrated here and many times elsewhere. But why else? I love when people ask questions that are already answered in the very document that they're criticizing, because it shows to me that they have an inability to examine things objectively. Raymond asks, why was Fiducia needed? Fiducia Supplicans answers your question explicitly. Explicitly, not even implicitly, explicitly. Why are you asking questions that are already answered? What? Did you not read it? Or if you read it, did you not understand it? Let's go through it again. It's at the very beginning. Why was fiducia needed? Well, paragraph 3. The above-mentioned responsum, that 2021 decision, elicited numerous and varied reactions, ranging from people who rejected the 2021 decision to people like Raymond Arroyo, who started to put it into doubt. Some welcomed the clarity of the document and its consistency with the church's perennial teaching. Others did not share the negative response it gave to the question or did not consider the formulation of its answer and the reasons provided in the attached explanatory note to be sufficiently clear. Some were saying, I either don't accept the 2021 decision or it's not clear enough in some aspects. Well, to meet the latter reaction with fraternal charity. There's your answer, Raymond. To meet the latter reaction with fraternal charity, to help those people who rejected the 2021 document better understand it, to help them come alongside them and bring them on board with that 2021 decision. It seems opportune to take up the theme again. There's your answer. Why do you ask questions that are already answered explicitly? Is it, again, you didn't read the document or you don't understand what you read? And it says, and offer a vision that draws together the doctrinal aspects with the pastoral ones in a coherent manner. Because all religious teaching ultimately has to be reflected in the teacher's way of life, which awakens the assent of the heart by its nearness, love, and witness. How does that 2021 decision work with who Jesus is? Not only what he taught us, but how he lived? Here's how. And therefore, this is one of the reasons why the document was needed. So reason number 1, Burke, Raymond, and others began to put the 2021 decision into doubt. Reason number 2, according to the document itself, to address people who didn't accept the 2021 decision. So we're now going to reaffirm the 2021 decision, which it does 2 paragraphs later, and then explain to people, here's why this decision was made. And here's how it's consistent with Jesus, who is merciful and loving and wants to reach sinners. Those are 2 reasons. Let me give you another. Number 3. When somebody asks, well, why was this needed if you could already do this before, if nothing changed? I ask the question to such people, do you think that doctrine changes and discipline changes every time a new document is released? If so, then you're in a church with 2,000 years of changes in doctrine and discipline. Obviously, doctrine doesn't change every time a document is released. Clearly, that's not your position, right? Okay. So what's the purpose? To reassert the doctrine and to further explain the doctrine and to further apply the doctrine. Assert, explain, apply. Do you see how ridiculous of a question this actually is if you just think about it? Because it assumes that somehow every time a document is released that the doctrine has changed. Why was Ordinatio Sacerdotalis needed? The document where John Paul II closed the door on women's ordination? Was he changing the church's doctrine when he did that? No. To further clarify and reassert and explain the church's doctrine. Right? Yeah. Same for fiducia. So honestly, I sincerely have to ask, why are people asking such a ridiculous question that reflects no kind of insight and no kind of forethought? Number 3. I'm sorry, actually number 4. We're on the 4th reason. Why was fiducia needed? Because fiducia supplicans refutes the proposals of the German bishops. The German bishops proposed 3 things. They wanted the church to accept homosexual acts as no longer disordered. Fiducia rejects that and says that all acts outside of a marriage between one man and one woman are illicit, immoral, sinful, wrong, inadmissible. That includes homosexual acts. So that was rejected. The German bishops were also asking for liturgical blessings for gay couples. The document explicitly rejects liturgical blessings. And then they wanted the blessing for the union of the couple, not the 2 persons who make up the couple. They wanted the blessing for the relationship, for the union, for the sin itself. The church says, no, we can't bless this union. It reasserts that in paragraph 5 and 11, among other places. Can't bless the union. You could bless the couple, but not the relationship. What is a couple? A couple is 2 individuals in a relationship. The 2 individuals can receive the blessing. The relationship cannot. That is what it's referring to when it speaks of couples. So when they get hung up on the term couple, it's because you're importing into the word couple union. You're interpreting it that way, but the document doesn't. The document defines its own terms. So you're eisegeting, you're importing your definition rather than letting the terms define themselves in the document. In other words, you're not reading carefully. You're doing what maybe a Protestant does when they read the Bible. It's called eisegesis. You import your definition into terms. You're doing the same thing. You're just doing it with the magisterium. So for them to continue to get hung up on the issue of the word couple shows you how poor their understanding is and their skills are in understanding magisterial documents. And so it raises the question, should they be commenting on church politics? Should they be commenting on church documents? Probably not. That isn't your lane. Talk about something else. Talk about how, a Catholic might understand, a movie that comes out this weekend. Talk about that. Avoid talking about church doctrine and church politics when you don't understand theology and you don't have the skills needed to interpret magisterial documents in a very basic way. Just avoid it. It's not your angle. It's not your lane. My advice. So again, why was the document needed? Just to recap, because Raymond Arroyo and Cardinal Burke and others put Pope Francis's 2021 decision into doubt, and they were suggesting he's about to change it. And you can also thank them in part for the controversy that erupted when everyone then read the document in that discontinuous way. They had already been prepared by the usual dissenters, the usual critics. That's number 1. Number 2, because documents are there to reassert the church's position, apply them, further explain them, not to change. Number 3, to address the German bishops and refute their proposals. And number 4, to address those who had rejected the 2021 decision and further help them in charity to better understand the church's position here and why it can't bless unions of persons of the same sex. That's why. Now, I also want to touch on the issue very briefly that it seems to me they're suggesting that Pope Francis is being disingenuous. We hear that from Raymond and Robert. from Raymond, well, if this was already the same, if nothing changed, why was this needed? In other words, trying to put it into doubt that, yeah, I'm not really buying it, Pope Francis. You're somehow trying to sneak in something here. And then Robert goes along with that by saying, yeah, well, we could always bless individuals, so maybe this is going to lead to something else. Further suggesting that his church is potentially going to start blessing sin. It's like, and you're a Catholic, right? Now let's have that conversation with a Protestant. You want to tell that Protestant, yeah, come to my church, we bless sin. Nobody will take you seriously. That's a clown position. Not only is it not true, but nobody can take you seriously as a Catholic. Did you hear what he said, however, at the end? Let's go to it. Here's what Raymond says at the end. Make sure that you can hear it. Let me enable audio.
Posed this to the Pope and she didn't, then why do you need a document?
But I actually went back and I blessed
Abuse cases in the church. This was interesting.
however many come in.
Yeah.
But there's clearly the attempt to kind of suggest something here, and
Yeah.
maybe it'll continue down the line and end up somewhere else.
Everyone gets a blessing. It's called the end of Mass, but I'll leave it there. Pope.
You heard that? Two things. Number one, Raymond, that's exactly what I was saying when Fiducia came out. I was trying to help people understand Fiducia is already consistent with what we're doing at Mass when the priest blesses everyone there. Guess what? At Mass, you have couples who are living in a disordered union, and every single one of them are blessed, right? But the relationship is not blessed, right? But every one of those persons, every one of those couples are blessed, but not their relationship, right? Right. Yes. You got it, Raymond. You finally embraced Fiducia Supplicans. You just don't realize it. You made that point for me. That's what I was saying from day one, literally, when Fiducia came out. That was the example I used to say there's already precedent for this. And so if you have a problem with this document, you have to have a problem with Mass. And so he accepts it. He just doesn't realize it. So, but praise God. Raymond Arroyo now accepts Fiducia Supplicans. So he's cool with, blessing persons of the same sex, right? And blessing gay couples. You're cool with it right there. There it is. Because you have gay couples at Mass and they're being blessed. He's cool with blessing gay couples. I guess I can now run with headlines that say, Raymond Arroyo accepts blessing gay couples. This is the kind of stuff they'll do to Pope Francis, right? I guess I need to just do that back, right? It's true. So I'm not actually bearing false witness. He actually is accepting the blessing of gay couples. Probably understood. Right. And when they do it, they actually aren't speaking the truth. They're actually twisting people's words. What I'm saying here is actually true. He just doesn't realize it. So maybe I'll just rename this Raymond Arroyo embraces blessing gay couples. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do it. Now, I didn't expect them to come out and say, we got it wrong. Maybe we've been misunderstanding some things here. I expected them to continue to spin it, which they did, to continue to put into doubt Pope Francis's view, to suggest that he's somehow disingenuous. I expected that. I don't expect to reach Raymond or Robert or any of these critics. I don't expect to change their mind. If they're even listening, I don't expect to change their mind, and I doubt they're listening. But what I'm hoping to do here is show you, do you see how incompetent their commentary is? Do you see how incompetent they are in commenting on these affairs? If this is how incompetent they are, perhaps they are not good sources in these areas. Maybe they're great for, Merry and Bright carols. I think that's what, Raymond does when Christmas comes around. He does some singing. That might be his angle. He might be great there. Or he might be good as just kind of a news anchor, just, telling you, hey, here's what so-and-so said. That might be his angle. But commentary and trying to understand the magisterium and trying to understand church politics, probably not a good resource. I hope you see that at this point. And hopefully that will help cut down on some confusion in the future if we stop going to people like this for commentary on what's going on in the church. And not only him, but Burke and all of the others that you're now seeing were wrong. All of those people who told you, and I listed every one of them. And I went through every one of their articles and videos. All of the people have a very long history of addressing every one of them in their criticisms, especially in this area. I hope it causes you to say, wait, if they could get this so wrong here, and they still, despite all of the evidence to the contrary, won't come out and publicly fix the record, fix the situation, undo the damage that they've in part created. If they won't do that, are they really a good source for me to understand what's going on in the church? Probably not. That's what I hope to really achieve here, for you to see what's going on. Share this with people who may still be confused. I still see it in the comment section to this day. To this day, every time I look in the comment section, it's almost like, once an hour. Well, if Pope Francis said this, why is it that he accepts blessing gay marriages? Where did they get that notion from? Not Pope Francis. From guys like that. That's where they got it from. Help them see the truth. Maybe share this video and others with them. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Check me out, of course, at patreon.com/Reason and Theology if you want to support me. God bless. Hey, friends, do you want others to discover why the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus established? And do you want to help people make sense of all the confusion in the Catholic Church today? Help contribute to this mission by supporting Reason and Theology at patreon.com/Reason and Theology. By doing so, you'll also get access to exclusive content for patrons only. Also, if you want to deepen your faith, there are free ebooks and even courses that you can sign up for by visiting reason.podia.com. Hey friends, I'm now teaching as an adjunct professor at Catholic Polytechnic University, and I am excited to announce that we will be offering the first ever Magisterial Studies Certificate program. It consists of 3 courses: an introduction to the magisterium, councils, dogmas, canons, and decrees, and evaluating magisterial teachings. If you want to further your education and learn more about Catholic teaching authority, this is the program for you. Check out catholicpolytechnic.org and click on the certificate tab at the top to sign up for the course today.